Hi, I'm Luis, and I am totally blind.
I'm Tina and I'm partially sighted. So that's the reason why we are doing the show that we're doing today, which is about visually impaired people. Like you might be visually impaired and you might know a bunch of people that are visually impaired, or you might not know anyone at all. So I'm just wondering, like, when you think of someone who's blind, who's the first person that you think about? And I'm wondering what Luis will say. So I'm gonna count to three, and after I count to three, say the person that you think about,
Okay.
Luis. Are you ready?
Yeah, okay, I'm
One,
ready.
two, three.
Louis Braille.
Helen Keller.
Oh, wow.
For me, it's Helen Keller. So
Okay.
you
For me, the first
got us.
person I think of is Louis Braille, just because, well, I mean, everyone uses Braille, so I guess that's the main reason that, and even though I don't know Braille, but that's who I think about whenever I do think about a blind famous person.
So I don't use Braille, so I thought about Helen Keller. I mean, she's deaf too,
Yeah,
so
right.
a lot of times when people think of someone who's blind, they like talk to them louder because
Yeah,
think of Helen Keller, or they think because you're blind, maybe you can't hear either. But
yeah.
yeah, so Helen Keller is my person that I thought of. And I think that makes sense that both of us thought of two people that are totally well known in the blind community. So
Yeah,
I
if
think
it's
those
kind of
are
like
the
a
people that you will be talking to us about first, right?
yeah, because it's pretty much a coin flip. If it hadn't been Louis Braille, it would have been Helen Keller. I think either or. They're pretty much I think the most well known people that are blind. Really, I mean, I think the secular world would probably think of musicians, like because there's blind
Oh,
musicians.
totally.
But
So we have our top three people, and a lot of mine are actually musicians.
all right,
But you were going to tell us about Louis Braille first?
yeah, I'll just kind of mention Louis Braille, and if you know anything extra about him, feel free to just interrupt me or tell me about it because I'm very interested to know any extra things that I may know.
Okay.
Well, Louis Braille, I didn't know much about him, as I said, just that he had invented Braille or the system of Braille. But it turns out that Louis Braille, he was born in France, and he was not born blind. He actually, at the age of 3, he was, I guess, playing with an awl, which is I didn't know what that
Mm-hmm.
was before, but it's like a stitching awl or like a sewing awl, and it's kind of like it's a pointy device that you use to make holes on in materials, like to either make holes or make holes bigger. So he poked his right eye, I think, with it at the age of 3,
Ooh.
and
Oh
yeah.
man.
So off the bat, he pretty much blinded himself, and I think maybe like 2 years later, his left eye got infected because there's like a parasympathetic type of reaction. Well, our bodies, like if something happens to one part of our body, like the other part compensates, or it affects everything. So with him, he lost his sight at 5, so he went completely blind at the age of 5, and
Hmm?
I mean, but he was still like a very intelligent little boy, and he was attending a blind school, and he was, I think, maybe 12 at the time, so he was learning. And there was no braille system yet. Remember that. So at school, the way he was learning was through, I guess, just raised letters, which, I mean, it sounds very difficult. I mean, I don't know how you would do that. I mean, just thinking about it sounds kind of complicated. But anyway, they had a presentation one day, and there was a man that came to the school to talk to them about a system that he had developed, because he was like in the army, and what he had developed was a system of dots and dashes for the soldiers to be able to read at night, without alerting the enemy, because if they had lights or anything, they would be targets. So this
Right.
system yeah, this system was called, I think, night reading, I think. So
Mm-hmm.
Louis Braille was very interested in it. So at the age of 12, he liked it, but it seemed too complicated. So he pretty much adapted it to having 6 dots. And by the age of
Okay.
15, yeah, he had developed like the Braille system. So that's crazy that at that young age he had invented the whole Braille system. And he went on to graduate and do like very very awesome things, for the blind community. He was an advocate, and he was always pushing for the braille system to be adopted, but it never did. But when he did die, actually, he died like at the age of 42 or 45, I think. But three
Oh,
years later is when the Braille system actually became adopted. So we owe the Braille
okay.
system to him. So he's a pioneer for the blind community for sure.
Yeah, and he was around in the 1800s, and actually he died in 1852. So it was
Okay.
after that that I guess the system came into, like use and that sort of thing.
Yeah, because
But
he was
that is pretty
pushing.
cool, though.
Yeah, yeah. Because when he was alive, he was pushing for it, but then when he died, that's when they actually adopted it. It happens like that a lot of times. Like,
Right.
but at least he helped a lot of people for sure.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And who's the first person you want to talk about?
Well, I have Andrea Bocelli, and he's an Italian opera singer. So of course I have seen him on TV and heard him. He was born in 1958, and like your guy, because it seems to be kind of a boy thing, Andrea Bocelli had become blind, but he became blind at the age of 12 years old
Hmm.
following a football accident in which he was hit in the head, and so that was the reason why he became blind. But
Oh,
speaking about his music, at 6 years old, Bocelli was taking piano lessons, and he also was learning the saxophone and the flute,
wow.
and so that's pretty much him. But actually, like I don't have as much to say about him as you did about Louis Braille, but Andrea Bocelli, he has a book and a movie about him because he wrote a book in 1999,
Wow.
and it was called The Music of Silence. And The Music of Silence became a movie in 2017.
Oh, wow.
And I actually saw the movie that about him, and it was pretty cool. So if anyone else is interested in learning more about him, you can always watch the movie,
That's
read the
awesome.
book, or even do more research on him.
Right. And he's one of the three tenors, right?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think
Oh,
he's a solo artist. I
oh,
don't know
okay.
about three tenors.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so that is my person, one of the first people that I thought of, or besides Louis Braille and
Right.
Helen Keller.
Yeah, it's because yeah, I took them. I guess I was like hugging them because she would have done another one, but I had first pick of three. I guess it should have been more fair, right? But
No, it's fine. I love Andrea Bocelli actually, and I mean Helen Keller is cool too, but you need to do a girl,
right,
you
okay,
know.
that sounded a little weird, but but yeah, um, yeah. Hold on, real quick. So I'm gonna talk about Helen Keller now, and I know you know about her since since you've seen some of you saw in the play of her and even the movie. So if there's any
That was a
information you
while
want to
back
share,
though. That was way back then, so
right? Well, if
everything will
anything,
be fresh to me.
oh, okay. Well, if you remember anything, just feel free. So as far as I read or I found out, Helen Keller was not born blind, but at the age of I think 19 months, or what, pretty much she was a baby, and she got sick, and people don't know if it was either scarlet fever or meningitis. I'm not too sure. One of those, or maybe something else altogether. But that disease is what caused her to become deaf and blind. Like she got better because she had like the stomach infection and it affected like other things, right? But after she got better, she was blind and deaf. So pretty much her family, like as a little girl, she knew like 60, I guess, signs or signals, kind of. I guess when they would want her to go do something that would push her, just kind of
Oh,
things that like
mm-hmm.
just the family themselves, like they'd like kind of like pull or tug or push, and this kind of like had a little system, but she didn't understand language, like she didn't know that a word meant this or that, until there was a at that time there had been a deaf and blind person before her who had actually gone to a deaf and blind school, and she was the first ever to graduate from high school, this past girl. So when they kind of heard about Helen Keller, people took interest in her and thought, well, she's deaf and blind, we can actually help her also. So they sent a person or another student from a blind school to go be her teacher or to try to help her as much as she could. And do you know who that was?
Yeah, I know who that was. That was Anne Sullivan for
Right,
sure.
right. And I didn't really know about her either. So pretty much Anne Sullivan became her teacher and then her companion in life. Because even after she was done teaching her, I mean, they still like were in each other's lives. I think they were just, I mean, friends for life. But
Right.
surprisingly, like I was interested to know how Helen Keller or how does a blind deaf person learn. And it's all with like they touch the person's hand and they do like gestures on it or different signals and at first Helen Keller didn't know that words were like describing things. Like I
Mhm.
think it was finally like it clicked when Anne Sullivan was running water, in the faucet, and with one hand she was feeling the water, and the other hand she was like gesturing to Helen Keller, or Helen Keller was the one feeling,
Yeah.
and then water, like she was
Yeah.
kind of
Oh,
tapping on
well,
her.
I've when I saw the movie, it's like a well that she takes her to, like a water pump kind of thing.
Right.
So it's pretty cool, when she figures out that there's actually a language, because I mean, that must have been just amazing to her.
Yeah.
And that's when
Exactly.
it hits her.
Right. And that's very because that's very biographical. Like that's true. Like that happened for real. And I'm glad that the movie also touched on that because that was like the moment that like it just clicked. Like words are to describe things. And Anne
Right.
Sullivan said that after that, like after she realized that everything like had a word for it, Anne Sullivan said that she nearly annoyed her because she wanted to know everything, like what everything was called, what everything was named, because she was very curious.
Oh,
Obviously, she just
totally. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I have a nephew that's like that. With between Spanish and English, sometimes he wants to know what things are in
right,
English.
yeah.
And what's this and what's that? And so I'm imagining it was a lot like that.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I can only imagine that. That's very awesome. Just kind of having like a eureka moment. Like an epiphany. Like oh man, like just I don't know. That just seems so amazing. That kind of experience, right? And then
Hmm.
and then Anne Frank actually also learned to speak. Which is kind of amazing also. And I didn't know how they would do that. But there's
Oh, you
this
mean Anne Sullivan? Yeah.
uh-huh. Oh, okay. I mean Anne Frank, right? I mean Helen Helen Keller. I'm confusing all the ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Helen Keller, there's a system also where I guess you touch the person's lips with your hand and like parts of your hand are touching the jaw and kind of feeling the like the wind.
Vibrations?
Yes, the vibrations and the wind. So that's how you can kind of like well, that seems very complicated to me, but I
Yeah.
guess they can concentrate on that, and they actually like know what like how the mouth moves and how words are. So she actually learned to speak, which is just amazing. And she became a lecturer also. So that's pretty much how she learned language, and it's just amazing that happened. And she became an advocate for people with disabilities, mainly the deaf and blind, and she was also a social leader. She was involved in politics. She was socialist, and people didn't like that, so she was kind of ostracized for that. But she
Hmm.
was a lecturer, and I mean, she was just a very amazing woman. You wouldn't even, she for sure overcame so many things in her life, and she was very accomplished for all she did. So there's a book. It's called The Story of My Life, and that's an autobiography by Helen Keller. And then that was adapted into a movie and plays, and well, not just one movie, but several movies. But the most notable movie is called The Miracle Worker, and also
Yeah, I
the
think there's different versions of that
yes,
movie.
yes,
So yeah.
right.
Yep.
But yeah,
Pretty cool.
yeah, very interesting. I was very interested after reading all that. And who's your second person?
Okay, so I did Fanny Crosby, also Frances Jane Van Alstyne, but most people know her as Fanny Crosby. I guess her family probably called her Nee Crosby.
Okay.
She was born in 1820 and died in 1915. So what she was a prolific hymnist. So she
Oh
was
wow.
a poet, lyricist, and composer, and I mean, she did a lot. Like, she wrote more than 8,000 hymns and gospel songs
Wow.
with more than 100 million copies printed. She is also known for her teaching and her rescue mission work. So she was kind of busy.
Wow.
Yeah, she wrote more than 1,000 secular poems and had four books of poetry published, as well as two best-selling autobiographies. And let's see, she wrote popular secular songs, like I said, and so like most of her well-known songs, of course, are like hymns and church music. And
Right.
so she did Pass Me Not, O Gentle Savior, as well as Blessed Assurance, Jesus is tenderly calling you home. Praise him. Then she did rescue the perishing, and to God be the glory. So a lot of those are very familiar hymn songs, and let's see, a lot of the people that were publishing music at that time were hesitant to publish
Mm-hmm.
her all in one hymn because she wrote so many of them
Oh wow.
that she used nearly 200 different pseudonyms during her career. I mean, like I said, she was busy. And
Wow.
so when I was looking to see if there were any books or movies about her,
Mm-hmm.
Goodreads had like 26 books that she wrote. And so, like, there's the Fanny J. Crosby and autobiography, Fanny Crosby life story, this is my story, this is my song. Then there's Fanny Crosby's Sweet Melodies, Volume 1, and it just goes on and on,
Wow.
you know. So like there's no reason why you
Right.
don't have you don't know about her because I mean there's like so many things. And I think they even did a movie. They did a movie that was more like a documentary,
Mm-hmm.
which they did in 2003, and it was called the Fanny Crosby story. So that covers a little bit of her life and yeah, she's just like a really cool lady and to me just so inspirational and I love listening to the songs that I've heard that she's written. So
That's awesome.
there's a lot to learn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was my person that I thought of. So two musicians so
Right.
far.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's yeah. My next one's a musician for sure. The next one was Ray Charles, and I know the. I mean, he's very well known in the blind community as well as the in the world. So Ray Charles,
Mhm.
he was born with a cataracts. So he knew his mom knew that he was gonna be going blind.
Okay.
Even as a child, but she prepared him for that. And his mom was 15 when she had him, so even that's kind of I don't know. It's kind of like a
Oh.
dark kind of story as far as who his birth dad was,
Mm.
because he was much older than the mom, uh, and he was like her foster parent. So that's kind of already very I don't know,
Oh.
kind of very very sad kind of thing. And then he kind of went off with other women, so he pretty much it was just his mom that raised him. At 15, she had him at 16, I guess.
Mhm.
And he had cataracts. So at the age of 5, he had gone completely blind. And a little before that, he had he was his childhood was full of tragedies because at the age of like when he was 4, his younger brother, who was a year younger than he was, he drowned in a bathtub, and he couldn't help him because he was like, I guess, too deep or too far away from him.
Oh.
So he ran to get his mom to help him, but by the time she got him, she pulled the body out of the tub, but it was too late. Like so at that age, he saw his brother die, which and then the year later, that's when he went completely blind. So that was already very traumatic. And like his mom wanted him to, like, she told him, just because you're blind doesn't mean you're stupid. That's was something that she told him, and I guess he stuck to that, or he always remembered that. So she sent him to the blind school in Florida, and
Okay.
there he learned like how to play all these musical instruments. He learned the keyboard, the drums, the guitar. He learned all instruments because even since he was younger, he was always interested in music, like those kind of things. And then at the age of 15, that's when his mom died. So
Oh,
yeah,
that is
so
sad.
yeah, right. So at that time, like he was kind of already traumatized from the death of his little brother and then of his mom, and he just kind of like he loved music. So he kind of wanted to see if he could make it in music, and he dropped out of school. Like pretty much, he didn't want to go back home after that. So he dropped out of school, and he actually, he tried making it in the music world, and there was a lot of struggling at first, but before you know it, like his talent, you know, gave him success, and it was very difficult for him because back in the day there was like, I mean, he was blind to begin with, he was black in the South, so
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of challenges going against him, but he made it through, and the what he is most known for is for combining blues, country, pop, and gospel music
Mm-hmm.
together, and he pretty much revolutionized, music. And some people even said that he was even more influential than Elvis Presley. So that just kind of says what kind of
Mm-hmm.
influence he had on music. And there's a list of in Rolling Stone magazine, and they refer to him as like, or he in a list, he came out as number 10 in the greatest musicians of all time. So that's quite
Okay.
a yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he had all these struggles in life, and I'm sorry for rambling, right? But but they made a
Yeah.
movie about him in 2004, and Jamie Foxx is the one who portrayed him in the movie, and it's a really good
Yep.
movie. Yeah, Jamie Foxx won the Oscar for portraying him. But
Yeah.
sadly, Ray Charles died like the year before that movie came out.
Uh,
But for sure, he's a big. I mean, he's influenced so many people, not just blind people, but people all over the world that aspire to be musicians, and they kind of would see him and say like, if he can make it,
yep.
what's my excuse, so he's very influential and
I
very.
I saw the movie.
Hmm.
It was really good. Like you said, it was he had a lot going on in his life. And
Yeah.
but before the movie, he'd been in the Pepsi commercials
Yes.
and the Wonder Years, the show The Wonder Years
Oh wow.
has I think his song that plays, that song that is in the Wonder Years theme song.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure if it's him or not, but yeah, the Pepsi commercial was very famous, and also he came out in Blues Brothers, one of the Blues Brothers
okay.
movies. So that kind of made him like more popular again to the new generations. Uh,
Mm.
but no, that's pretty awesome. And who's your third person?
Mine is also a musician and it is Cleveland Hardway Morris, otherwise known as Stevie
Oh.
Wonder. So he was born, like, I guess he was born on the 13th of May, 1950, and he's a musician and a record producer. He's been blind since his birth,
Mm.
and so since he was a child, and he's been a prodigy ever since then.
Wow.
They called him Little Stevie Wonder,
Oh, wow.
and it led him to sign with Motown and Tamala label at the age of 11. In 1963, he had a single called Fingertips, and it was a number one on the hit on the Billboard's Hot 100. Then he it made him one of the youngest artists ever to top the chart. And let's see, he's credited as a pioneer and an influencer to all musicians, kind of like what you were saying about your
Mm-hmm.
guys,
Mm-hmm.
about your person. And this included for rhythm and blues, kind of crossed over with soul,
Right.
gospel, funk, and jazz.
Right.
Often hailed as a musical genius, he is one of the world's best-selling musicians with sales of over 100 million
Oh wow.
records worldwide. He's a virtual one-man band, it
Mm.
says. And so he's the one that started using synthesizers with electronic
Oh
musical
wow.
instruments and that sort of thing during the 1970s. Um, and he reshaped the conversations of R&B. For instance, it says he also helped to drive the genre of R&B into the album era,
Mm.
crafted his LPs as cohesive, consistent, socially conscious statements with complex compositions. And he's done a lot in his lifetime because it says he has won over 22 Grammy Awards. He was the first Motown artist and second African American musician to win an Academy Award
Oh wow.
for Best Original Song for the 1984 film The Woman in Red. And Stevie has also been inducted into the Rhythm and Blues Music Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So
Wow.
he's pretty famous.
Oh yeah.
He's also noted for his work as an artist for political causes, including his 1980 campaign to make Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday a federal holiday in the United States. And in 2001, he was nominated as the United Nations Messenger of Peace. In 2014, he was honored with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and his awards kept coming. In 2021, he was named as a founding inductee of the Black Music and Entertainment Walk of Fame.
Wow.
So, yeah, he's done a lot, and he's been busy since he was a child.
Right.
And he's pretty amazing, really, you know. So,
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I saw a video of him on YouTube sometime back. Just somebody leads him to the drums and he just starts playing them, and it's just pretty. I mean, it's amazing how much talent he has. So that's pretty awesome.
yeah,
That's good to know.
yeah,
I
he is
guess.
pretty cool. So, who's your other person that you thought of?
Yeah. Well, what you had said for us to try to do is kind of think of three people that we knew like off the top of our heads, and
And those
then
were it for me.
right, and me too. Like those three were the ones that kind of I guess stood out. Or if I could name three right away, those were the three. And
Hmm.
then you had said, okay, now let's try to research and see like other blind people and what they accomplished, or just people that we don't know or we commonly think about. So the first person
Yeah.
that I researched or that I found was his name is Dr. Jacob Balatin. I don't know if I'm pronouncing
Hmm.
that right or not, but
Maybe it's Bolton.
I think I don't know. You have the spelling, but I think the when I saw it was like Balatin and not so much Bolton. But if I'm
Hmm.
saying it wrong, you could spell it and then see if people. Um, well, him, right, Dr. Balatin. So yeah, that's right. It's doctor. So this person, Dr. Balatin, he was totally blind, and he is the first ever blind person to become a physician, and that's just I can't even grasp that.
Hmm.
But that just kind of, and that was early on. It was like in the, I think the 1800s, if I'm not or what date does he have for his data? He didn't live too long though. But what's his birth date?
I know that he died when he was in his 40s, right?
I think he
So
was like 36 or 35 when he died. So I was like, oh man, that's
uh,
almost
he didn't live long enough.
yeah.
So that's kind of sad. So he died in 1924, and he was
Oh
born in 1888.
right, yeah. And that's crazy. Like to think about, like in the 1800s, or pretty much like at the turn of the 1800s to the 1900s, like he became a physician, and that's just amazing. And he
Yeah,
was
it is
actually
pretty amazing.
he became an expert in the heart and in the lungs. And he was
Yeah.
like whenever he would go apply for the physician doctor for the jobs, people didn't really want to. Well, obviously that he had a lot of prejudice and a lot of people doubting him, but once they got to know him, they were like, well, he really knows what he's doing, he really knows what he's talking about. So he actually kept his private practice for many years, and he would even be the one that was like examining the soldiers before they were going off to war. So he was doing
Cool.
that, and he became a big advocate for the blind community. He was very interested in the blind youth, and he also
Hmm.
started like a Boy Scout troop that was all blind. So that's
Cool.
so he cared a lot about young people being able to accomplish whatever they thought about, because he pretty much said, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And he wanted blind people to be, well, treated as intelligent and equal, and not just pitied. Because before, and even now, when they see a blind person, they look, like you were saying earlier, some people, they'll kind of speak louder, or they won't talk to us directly. They'll kind of talk to whoever we're with if we're with somebody. So there's still that
Mhm.
going on. So there's stigma that still needs to be broken. And Dr. Bolatin, he was very strong on blind people being, well, able to succeed even when society doesn't think that they can or that they should. And that's, I guess, the
Yeah.
first person that I thought about or that I researched, and I found him very interesting and very inspiring.
Yeah, he is very inspiring. I agree. So the person that I came up with is Tilly Aston, and she was born in the 1873, and then she died in 1947. Tilly Aston was a blind Austrian writer, and so I'm going to the arts basically. And she founded the Victorian Association of Braille Writers, and later went on to establish the Association for the Advancement of the Blind, with herself as secretary. She is remembered for her achievements in promoting the rights of people with visual impairments, and Aston was also a prolific writer, particularly of poetry and prose sketches. Though her writing was often interrupted by her teaching and other activities. So,
Mm,
like me, I love writing. So for me, she's
mm,
just kind of cool, and it's just interesting to see other people that are a little bit like you or have
right.
the same interests as you. So,
No, that's awesome.
um, that's why I picked her.
That's awesome. That's really, I mean, someone that you can relate to. That for sure is very encouraging. Oh, sorry. And then, well, I guess my next person was another very well. I didn't really know about him either because, like I said, I don't really know a whole lot, but I should know a lot more. But I this was Abraham Nemeth, and he was
Hmm.
I get he was also blind, and he well, they were both like Doctor Balatin and Abraham Nemeth. They were both Jewish, and
Oh.
so they well, I'll go to Dr. Nemeth now, right? So when he was he went to the school for the blind, and he finished it, or he finished the primary school and stuff, and he wanted to kind of keep going, like further his education, but the counselor told him that he shouldn't pursue, because he wanted to pursue mathematics, and he said that's too complicated for the blind person. You should just do what you can do or whatever. So he was kind of just doing like whatever he could. He was even like a salesman, like a door-to-door salesman, and he was married at the time, and his wife is the one that encouraged him to try it. Like she said, go to school and try it. You never know if you don't try it. So that motivated him to go to college, and he went to college, and he took well, he became a mathematician, and
That's cool.
the classes were very advanced as far as the math and the science, and Braille wasn't, like, Braille could only help you so much, because there's
Hmm.
when math and science gets super complicated, it just kind of wasn't cutting it. So he developed his own like math system,
Hmm.
and they call it the Nemeth method, or the Nemeth system for math and science. So
Right.
he pretty much invented that himself, and he used that to pretty much pass his classes and get his his degree. So after that, he really he pushed for it to be adopted because he saw how helpful it was for him. And
Hmm.
he was a college professor in Detroit, I think, for maybe 20 years, 20 plus years. And so he was also very accomplished and very influential, and he was a big member of the National Federation of the Blind. So he was pushing for for the he was a big advocate for the blind community, and he actually won the award of he won the Jacob Balatin Award. So it kind of come full circle. So he actually won the
Cool.
award in 2009, I think. So, but for sure,
Okay.
but for
So
sure,
he's like someone that's around now, pretty
uh,
much.
well, he died in 2013. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, but he did live a long time, and he did like a lot of good for the blind community. So just very very accomplished, very accomplished person, and just pretty much a genius.
Yeah.
These people are
I know how hard
geniuses.
math is when you're visually impaired,
Oh,
believe me.
oh
And
yeah,
it was never my favorite subject.
yeah. Well, even for the people that aren't, the normal people, or the people with normal eyesight, that's horrible.
Mhm.
Like, just math has
Yeah.
always been something that I've never liked math, even when I could see. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I know.
yeah. And what was your second person?
So mine is Thomas Rhodes, and I guess you would pretty much say that he was a physician, like so like
Oh
along with
wow.
your other doctors. Well, actually his name is Thomas Rhodes Armitage, and he was born in 1824
Oh
and
wow.
died in 1890. And he was the founder of the Royal National Institute of the Blind. So he became a physician, but he was forced to abandon his medical career because of declining vision.
Mm,
It's kind of sad. Eventually, he became totally blind, and when he did, he decided to help solve the problem of making literature available to the blind
mm,
through embossed type. And so he formed the British and Foreign Society for Improving the Embossed Literature of the Blind, which is a long
right.
title. Later, it became the British and Foreign Blind Association for promoting the education and employment of the blind. And after his death, it became the National Institute for the Blind. So, like, his disability definitely was later able to help other people with that disability. So
Oh,
that's
that's
pretty
awesome.
cool that he was able to use, like, what happened to him to help other people.
Right. Yeah, and that's like the common thread in the people we've talked about, like what they've accomplished. They try to help other people also. So they're very like humanitarian thinkers, So that's very awesome of all these people.
Yeah, it's pretty inspiring. And so,
Hmm.
like, if we're doing this show for anything, we hope that you're inspired and, that sort of thing.
Right.
So we're moving on now. If you don't have any more to say
Uh,
about any of the people that we've talked about.
yeah, I think I
Um,
had one more, just one person, and that was Marla Runyon. And
oh, yeah, that's right. Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
and well, since the Olympics were recently, I was like very impressed by her.
Mm-hmm.
So at the age of 9, uh, she wasn't like a normal child. She was in gymnastics and soccer and sports like those. But at the age of 9, she was diagnosed with Stargardt's disease. So pretty much you lose your
Okay.
vision. And after she was diagnosed with Stargardt's, she kind of stopped. She quit soccer because she said the soccer ball was getting very hard to see. So she had to. But she was still very into sports and things like those. So she kind of focused more on the track and field. So she became more of a runner. So she was doing those events in high school, and then in college she actually after college she was excelling in that level also, and she wanted to become a professional. So she actually participated in the 1992 Paralympic Games and the 1996 Paralympic Games. So she won gold medals there. I think it was I forgot where it was, but Atlanta was one of them. And
Mm-hmm.
so those were the Paralympics, and she wanted to compete against, the best in the world. So her goal was to actually go to the Olympics. So,
Right.
and people kind of didn't, I don't know, they tried to kind of sway her not to, but she was just very determined to try it. So in
Mm-hmm.
1999, she went to the Pan American Games, which are kind of like the little brother to the Olympic Games.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like just for the Latin American countries, I think. But anyway, she won gold there, so she was already feeling good about her chances to go to the Olympics. So she did make the Olympic team, and she competed in the 1500 meter race, and she actually
Mm-hmm.
finished eighth place. And eighth place is actually the highest that any American woman had placed in that race. And she also became the first ever legally blind person to compete in the Olympic Games. So she does a lot of speaking, just motivating people, and she's still very active as far as she runs marathons and things like those. So she doesn't let her disability affect her at all, and she's still competing and being active and inspiring people.
That is pretty cool. Awesome. So, we have talked about mathematicians, musicians, people doing sports
Hmm.
that are blind, but we also have some people that are very well known, and they also had some visual problems. So I don't know if we're going to surprise anyone when we name them. But yeah, we have a list. So I will say the names of the person, and Luis will tell you like what they're famous for, pretty much.
Okay.
So
Oh, these are the people that I guess they lost some vision later in life, right? The ones that.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because anything is possible. You might have like your sight
Hmm.
completely normal and everything, but things like as we heard, there's people that had accidents and lost it in childhood,
Yeah.
but most of these people lost it like later in life.
Right.
So, are you ready?
Yeah. See if I I know most of these. Let's see.
Okay, so we have Claude Monet.
Okay, he was a famous impressionist painter, and I think he actually had cataracts later on, and he could barely see at one point, but he was still painting. And I think the water lilies, he painted those even when he was already pretty much like having a very hard time painting or seeing.
Yep. Galileo Galilei.
Yeah, well, he was a famous astronomer, and he was the one that lost his eyesight later in life.
Yep. Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Yeah, well, he was the president of the United States during World War II, and he had
Mm-hmm.
a lot of conditions. He had polio, and but it is believed that he was actually blind from one of his eyes. I don't know if it's the right or the left, but it was due to cataracts and a possible detached retina. So on top of all the other ailments that he was blind from one eye.
Yep. Harper Lee.
Well, she's a famous author, and she's famous for To Kill a Mockingbird, which is a book that I'm sure you really like.
Oh, for sure. Yep. Youth lit. So then we have Homer.
Okay, so he was well a Greek historical poet who was famous for the Odyssey and
Yep.
the Iliad.
Yep. James Joyce.
Okay, he's a famous American author or a British author actually.
Okay. John Milton.
He's a poet, a famous poet, best known for the poem Paradise
Isla.
Lost. Yes.
Okay, and then we have Joseph Pulitzer.
Okay, so he was a newspaper magnate, and he lost his eyesight late in life. And well, after he died, the Pulitzer Prize is kind of his legacy now. Like people know the Pulitzer Prize because it's named after him.
Yep. And then we have celebrities with impaired vision, people that are out and about now that people might be surprised,
All
like,
right.
really?
Yeah, because I'm curious about
So,
this. Yeah,
huh?
I'm curious to know this because I don't know like many celebrities that are visually impaired.
Well, I'm gonna name them, and I think you already know because I sent you the list. So you were surprised when I told you the first
Oh
time.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, so the first person is his name is Alan Pineda Lindo Jr., right? And do you remember who that was?
Well, I didn't know his name, but yeah, from the Black Eyed Peas, and yeah, for sure I didn't know that he was well visually impaired.
Yeah, I didn't know either. And then, of course, we have Johnny Depp, and it says that he acknowledged that he has suffered from vision issues from early on in his life, saying he can barely see from his left eye.
See, that's
I mean, did
crazy.
that come as a surprise, right?
Yeah, that surprised me for sure. Like I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah. And then we have Tiger Woods, and it says the famous golf professional had LASIK surgery twice to remedy his extreme myopia. He would also experience frequent headaches from his constant squinting. So yeah, those were the surprising for me
Oh yeah, for
to
sure.
hear. about those people.
Yeah.
But actually, yeah, but there's actually other people from around the world that have visual impairments. So I wanted to name them and then the country because you never know who's going to be listening. And I'm wondering, like, do you know yourself some visually impaired people, or do you know the person from your country who has a visual impairment? So I'm curious. I think we knew a few, but like not
Right.
even that many,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So from Argentina, we have Jorge Luis Borges, and then we have Maria Teresa Paradis is from Australia. From Belgium, we have Joseph Plateau.
Mm.
From Canada, we have Brian McKeever. Also from there is Tony Max. Then we have the French. From France, we have Bernard Morin. From Germany, we have two people, it looks like, which is Arnold Schlick and also Sabriye Tenberken. Okay, so if I was a person announcing people graduating, this would be my
Yeah.
test right here, because there's people from all over the world. And Francisco Landini is from Italy. We have from Puerto Rico. Do you know who's from there?
Jose Feliciano. He's the famous for I want to wish you a Merry Christmas or that song. He's a millionaire just stuff like that.
Yeah, so yeah, he's from Puerto Rico. And then from Switzerland, we have Leonhard Euler. And then another singer, famous from Singapore, is Kelvin Tan Whelan,
Mm.
and he was actually like in a singing competition and won, and
Oh
that's
wow.
how he became famous.
Oh wow.
Um, from Turkey, we have Esref Armagan or Armagan. And then we have people from the UK. And there's actually some pretty impressive people from the UK, I gotta say.
Wow.
Um, Frederick Delius. And then one of the people that I suggest people research would be Peter White and Townsend. She's pretty cool. I was really impressed by their bios. And from the USA, we have David Alexander Patterson as well as Judy Human. And this one is hard to say, so you didn't even want me to try. But but it's Rasan Roland Kirk or something like that. His name is a little bit hard because it's spelled Rahsaan. So that's him. He's pretty cool as well. So
Wow.
those are the people from around the world. And so one of the
And
last things I had, or one of the questions that I asked was
yeah, and just about that, like, there's a lot more people, but these are all the people that we kind of narrowed it down to. But I'm sure there's like tons and tons, you know. Um,
oh, totally.
yeah, but these are the ones that I guess we were able to find. But if you can find research and if you're curious to find more, that's awesome because it's always awesome to learn about other blind people or people with blind with this visual impairments.
Or people that are like you. So the my
Exactly.
question goes with that, which is can you name the one person that you could relate with the most or really admire? So that was or someone that you were surprised had a visual impairment. Like who is your person?
Right. Well, when I was looking up the lists, I didn't even know that. Well, I didn't know much about Harriet Tubman. Just that she was kind of like, a former slave, and then she became an abolitionist for the Underground Railroad. So, I didn't know that she also, well, she was legally blind pretty much, because, and that was surprising. It was surprising to hear that, to know that she had vision problems, and then I was very impressed by her life in that she was guiding slaves out of enslavement, but she was like she could barely see, so that was very impressive. And I admire the fact that well, what happened with her is that when she was a little girl, there was
Mm-hmm.
a slave master that was gonna hit another slave with like a very heavy metal weight or something, and instead of hitting that guy or that person, it hit her in the head. So she started from that point on. She would have seizures, and her eyesight just went. She had very bad eyesight. So just imagine like escaping, in the middle of the night, barely able to see, but you make it, you escape. So she escaped to Canada, but even after she was free, she kept going back to the plantations and setting other people or helping other people free. So I think in her lifetime she helped like over 300 slaves, you know, get their way out of slavery and set free. So I think that was just
Uh,
she just very impressive, and just her selflessness and wanting to help others, even though she was already free. And then especially with having that challenge of being visually impaired. So
yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, it surprised me too to find out that she lost her vision.
yeah,
But then hearing that, it was kind of sad to hear why
right,
even.
you're right.
And then when I asked you this question, like who surprised you or who was the person that you kind of that you maybe you related to or just kind of just admired.
Hmm.
I was kind of surprised by your answer. I was like,
Oh yeah,
"Really?" And
yeah,
you were like, "Yeah," but it makes sense because she was like a hero. Like she
right.
still kept doing what she was doing no matter what, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And there was a movie in 2019 called Harriet.
I
So that's a
wanted to
movie.
see that.
Yeah, it's good. So that's
And
one.
now I really want to see it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You should watch it. It's good.
Okay, I
And
will.
and who's the person
Totally.
that I guess inspired you the most, or that you can relate to the most?
So, it's Joanna Ann Mansfield. Actually, her name, we know her best as Anne Sullivan.
Oh,
Um,
full circle.
so yeah, full circle, exactly. She was born in 1866 and then she died October 20th, 1936.
Mm.
And I didn't know, like, I don't know why, because I'd seen, like, I guess it's been a while since I watched The Miracle Worker or anything like that. I didn't know that she had lost her vision, so that was surprising to me. And she, of course, she was the American teacher, best known as the instructor and companion for Helen Keller. In 1880, Anne was sent to the Perkins School for the Blind, and I was just like, "What?
Hmm.
Wait, what? She was blind? Like
Yeah.
it totally? I just forgot, I guess."
Right.
So it came as a surprise to me that it was like the blind leading the blind,
Yeah. Pretty
but I
much.
guess kind of understood Helen Keller better than most people
Oh yeah.
because she was struggling as well.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool to me.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And they were like lifelong friends up until Anne Sullivan died. So that's really powerful to have that kind of friendship, with somebody.
Yeah, it is pretty cool and amazing because now we hear about them still
Yeah.
and we can be inspired by both Helen Keller and Sullivan and like pretty much the rest of the
Oh
people
yeah.
that we have mentioned and talked
Definitely.
about.
Definitely.
So I hope people are inspired by this episode and you've learned a lot. And if there's anything that you want to learn, like more about certain people, that you will just research and look and just, learn all that you can.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thank you for suggesting this. I was kind of thinking it was kind of like homework, like as I was back in school, but it was very awesome to learn about all these people, and these are just what we narrowed it down to. There's like so many people that have accomplished so many things, not
Yeah,
just like blind or visually impaired, but all kinds of disabilities, across the board. So, I mean, that's the
yeah,
thing. Historically, there have been people that have overcome so many challenges, and that's just something very inspiring for us. Just we don't have an excuse. The most able-bodied person, you can do it. Just look at other people and see that they did it, so you can do it too. Same for ourselves. We don't have any excuse also. So
yeah.
thank you for suggesting this. I really did learn a lot, and I ended up enjoying it. Even though it was kind of homework. So, do you have anything?
Yeah,
Anything?
it was work. Even me, how
Yeah,
stressed I
yeah.
was. I was like,
Oh
okay, I'm
yeah.
not ready. I'm not ready.
No, I
And I
know.
guess we keep going like that. But
Right,
really we wanted to do this, but at the same time it was a little bit of work, but we did the best that we could
right.
and
Yeah.
we hope that you will continue to look at other people for inspiration and just know that if they could do it, so can you.
Well said. Well said. Yeah. Well, next time it'll be a movie or something. So, but we'll see. Stay tuned. And
Yep.
this is Luis, and this is Indiana, and we're signing off.